guys, welcome back to my channel. I am standing in my very unfinished basement right now. Our family is in the middle of a home renovation project, and as a result, well, this is where I'm filming today. Look at 3 different kitchens, all with their own style, but all of them are white kitchens. And I'm going to show you 4 different elements you're going to want to consider when choosing the finishes for your white kitchen to make sure that you end up with an end result that you really, really love. Now, before we dive into that, I would love it if you would take a second and tap subscribe, hit the bell so you're notified every time there's a new video. I am sure you are sick and tired of hearing YouTubers say that phrase, but just in case you didn't know, subscribes are a very important metric here on YouTube. And if you're somebody like me who makes an income from views on YouTube, then tapping that bell is going to notify you when a new video has been posted, which is more likely that you're going to come in and watch that video. So when your favorite YouTubers say hit subscribe and tap that bell and like this video, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, all those things, it's because it's really important in the whole world of YouTube in order to make an income and in order to have your channel get in front of more eyes. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, tap subscribe, do all those things. I would be really, really appreciative. Okay, so like I said, white kitchens aren't going anywhere. They are a favorite. Everyone seems to love them, and I truly don't blame them. They're classic, they're bright, you know, there's just so many great things about a white kitchen. But let's talk about 4 specific things to consider to make sure you pull together the design that you really like. These 3 kitchens I'm using as examples today are from 3 different design projects that I've done. There are a handful of similarities in these kitchens. They all are white. They all have white cupboards. They all have subway tile as backsplash. They all have different colors of hardwood floors. They all have stainless steel appliances, and they all have versions of open shelves. Other than that, there are some really significant differences, and these are the differences that you really need to pay attention to customize your white kitchen so that it suits you. The first one is textures. So you'll notice with this first kitchen that there are more matte cupboards, and then the backsplash is really shiny and it's really textured. There's a lot of ripples in this backsplash, and then the quartz countertops are like a little bit of a semi-gloss. So there are 3 different textures and sheens that are being used in this specific kitchen. In kitchen number 2, there is more of an eggshell finish on the cupboard, so it's not as matte as the first cupboards were, but it's not super high gloss either. And then the subway tiles are also shiny, and there's a bit of a texture and a ripple pattern to those as well. But then there's a higher sheen on these countertops. These are granite countertops, and they're a little bit more glossy than the previous quartz countertops. And then in kitchen number 3, which happens to be my kitchen, there are really high gloss cupboards on all of the kitchen walls, and there is a shiny flat subway tile, so there's no ripples, no texture happening in the subway tiles. And then these countertops are also quartz, so they are more of a semi-gloss as opposed to something that's really shiny. When you're putting together your all-white kitchen, paying attention to the subtleties in textures is really important. For example, in my kitchen, if I had high gloss cupboards and a really glossy countertop and a really high gloss backsplash, the whole thing is going to be reflecting light and shiny, and it's going to lack some interest. It's going to fall really flat. I know that's the opposite word of shiny, but it's just not going to do anything on the eyes. But by having subtleties in the textures that you use, it creates layers within the one color of white. And that makes it more interesting on the eyes. There's these little subtleties that maybe you wouldn't actually pick up consciously, but internally it's really pleasing when there's different textures all in the same color family. Okay, the second thing to consider is color. So yes, we're all talking about white kitchens. However, you'll notice each of these kitchens also has their own little splashes of color. Should I even call them color? Well, this is what I'm talking about. The first kitchen has used cooler whites, and there's a honey color wood in the open shelves with black metal brackets that are supporting it, and also there's like warm gold in all the door hardware and in the faucet and on the light fixture. So they've chosen to mix these different elements in along with the white so that it's not just plain white everywhere you look. Whereas the second kitchen uses warmer white tones. They have a rich espresso colored wood for their open shelves, and they've got black metal hardware, both to hold up their open shelves and as the hardware on the doors. But their fixtures, their faucet over their sink and their pot filler are chrome. Really, really opposite to the black metal. And the third kitchen, my kitchen, has cooler white tones that have been used all throughout, but there's the opposite of this really matte black that's been used both in the light fixtures and in the choice of kitchen sink. There's also stainless steel shelves and stainless steel brackets, but then there's also warm brass finishes. There's a warm brass faucet and warm brass in the light fixture. So there's a mixture of cool and warm metals, of shiny and of matte black. So you see how there's been choices used with these different colors in each of these kitchens that really help shape it and create it into a unique space that's just for them. Before we get into point 3, I just wanted to let you know that I have a video where I share the 10 mistakes that I made when I designed my kitchen. My kitchen was the first design project that I ever did, and as a result, I learned so much in that process. So if you're considering embarking on a kitchen renovation, I highly recommend that you watch the video so that you can maybe think through things a little bit more thoroughly than I did, so that you don't make the same mistakes that I made. Okay, and number 3 is pattern. Each of these kitchens, although they're really monochromatic and really light, they all have little elements of patterns that have been included. So for kitchen number 1, there's a subtle pattern on the counter. It's not like a strong marbling veining at all. It's just really, really subtle. Whereas kitchen number 2, it's subdued, but there's a much more visible pattern and a variation of color on their granite countertops. And then in the third kitchen, there's a more dramatic variation of color because the marble pattern is really strong on these quartz countertops, and also it's really highlighted on the waterfall edge of the counter. Now, the final one is going to be the most important of all of these. Honestly, the final one, not even just for white kitchens, but this is just a great rule of thumb in general. So before we get there, let's just recap. So we talked about the importance of different textures. When you're doing an all white kitchen, you want to make it interesting with your textures. We also talked about ways you can infuse little elements of color so that it's not stark white everywhere you look. And finally, we've just finished talking about different patterns. How are you bringing in patterns into your white space so that it's a little bit more visually interesting? Now, the fourth one, most important one, is undertone. Undertone is so important when you're selecting colors. You don't want to walk into like a cupboard place and say, I want those white cupboards, and then into the paint store and say, I want that white paint, and then into your backsplash or your tile store and be like, I want that white tile. You want to bring each element together and try it all together and look at it to see how it works, because if you look at a paint fan deck, you will see that there is a huge section of paint dedicated to the color white. There are whites that are cool and whites that are warm. Whites that have a blue undertone, a green undertone, or maybe then a yellow undertone, or a red undertone, or a pink undertone. The undertone makes a huge difference. So I'm going to show you an example here. I have here an IKEA kitchen door front. This is just a small drawer front of one of the white cupboards that they offer in their current selection of cupboards. Based on this, if I was gonna do my whole kitchen with this white cupboard, I wanna make sure that the tiles that I bring in and the paint colors that I choose really match the undertone of this paint. So I have a handful of subway tiles laid out here, and as you can tell, each of them has a different undertone. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't work with this cupboard, but some are just gonna look better with this cupboard, especially based on what you do with paint and other fixtures. But for the example that we're gonna do today, we're gonna try to find the subway tile that matches the closest to the undertone of this drawer front. Once we've narrowed that down, let's take a look now at some paint. I have large swatches here from Sherwin-Williams. These are all different whites from their collection, and I also have some smaller swatches from Benjamin Moore. Well, really quickly, you can see that some beautiful whites instantly are out. They look pink, or they look green, or they look gray. But if you were to see them just hanging on a wall by themselves, you might say, that's a lovely shade of white. I want to use that in my kitchen. But if you bring it next to the other items going in your kitchen, everything changes. The undertone is really important. So look at this example. Here's an example of a grayish undertone subway tile with the very crisp, clean IKEA cupboard with a real pinkish undertone paint color. Sure, I'll put a pretty brass knob on there to see, you know, if it ties it all together, but clearly if you were to walk into a kitchen that looked like this, you wouldn't feel as pleased. You would feel a little bit off put from it. You would wonder kind of what went wrong. But it's all shades of white. So now let's try doing it with undertones that match. So let's get this subway tile that matches really well with this cupboard. Then we're gonna grab this specific shade of white, Oxford white from Benjamin Moore, seems to be doing the trick with this cupboard. I'm still gonna put that same brass knob out, and then I'm gonna bring in this really subtle white quartz countertop sample. Now the white quartz and this paint are slightly warmer than the actual cupboard and the backsplash tile, but together the four of them work so well together. Look at how monochromatic, pleasing, and inviting this palette is for this white kitchen. Now, let's just switch it up a little bit. Let's remove this counter and let's remove this knob. Now, I don't have a different knob to show you, but let's pretend. And I'll put a different countertop down that's got more of a fleck in it. It's a little bit more dramatic and it's a little bit cooler of an undertone, so it actually matches the cabinet a little bit better. And let's put this black down. This can, you know, we can pretend this is gonna be any brackets to shelves, or the hardware choice we put on our cupboards would be in a black finish. Look how beautiful this looks. All of these whites work really well together. They're all in the same undertone, the same color palette, the same family, and they're really easy on the eyes. And yet both of those final two examples are very different kitchens. You would feel like one kitchen has one style and one vibe, and the second one with the black would feel like it has a very different vibe. So it's really important that you guys take the time to look at the undertones, and I truly think the best way to do that is to get a tile sample, get a countertop sample, get a cupboard sample, get your hardware, and bring them all into the space. Ideally, the space that you are renovating, the space that you're gonna be in, so you can have that light that's there and all that. Bring it all into that space and you'll be able to see right away, no, that's like definitely looks pink, or that looks blue, or that looks gray. And just begin to weed out the ones that don't have the same undertone. Often when you do that, you'll have one item that you're working everything else around. So in this case, if my clients were gonna go with an IKEA kitchen and they wanted white, well, I'm limited to what options IKEA has. So if this was the option they went with, I have no other choice but to work with this specific white cabinet. So all of the tiles and the paint and the hardware would have to work around that one cabinet drawer. So find the item that you must work around and then make everything work together really cohesively around that specific finish. You guys, I hope that this helps you design a white kitchen that you truly love, that is beautiful and pleasant to be in, that's bright and spacious and open and warm and inviting and just feels so beautiful on the eyes. I would love to hear your comments below about which of these three kitchens most suit your tastes and your personal style. Comment below, let me know if you're interested. I have full video tours of all three of these kitchens. I'll link them in the description box below. I hope this video was helpful for you guys. Take care. I will see you right here next week at I Am Loved.